Hi everybody, Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today is Evangelos Simoudis, and we're going to be talking about his book here, the Flagship Experience, How AI and Software-Defined Vehicles Will Revolutionize the Automotive Customer Experience. It's a fantastic book about the future of vehicles, if you're interested in that sort of thing. Evangelos, where can people find you?
So my personal website is corporateinnovation.co. And our firm's website is Synapse Partners.co. I'm on LinkedIn and quite active there. And both through the websites and through LinkedIn, people can get in touch with me.
I know that we've got a number of things that we want to get through, but it would be really interesting to start off by saying, what was what's the inspiration for writing the book?
So I would say I started my journey on the role of AI in new mobility a little over 10 years ago. And at that time, the aha moment was that AI would play a very big role in new mobility. Initially, we were thinking about autonomous vehicles, and as you may recall, 2013, 2014 is when the commercial efforts to introduce autonomous vehicles in the market were getting off the ground. So I wrote a book about that. It's called The Big Data Opportunity in Our Driverless Future. It also touched upon the emergence of mobility services, which again they were allowing us to move around without having to drive ourselves. That was followed by another book that examined more broadly. The book was called Transportation Transformation. More broadly, the role of AI in urban mobility. And then, as I was about 3 years ago, I started thinking about the fact that automakers are introducing new types of vehicles, battery electric, software-defined vehicles. And again, there was a lot of technology that was going into the vehicle. There was an AI can play a big role, and we can talk about that down the line. But it was important I felt it was important to reconsider the entire customer experience, both what's happening within the vehicle, so the so-called user experience, but more broadly, what's happening before you acquire a vehicle and after you acquire the vehicle, the overall experience of how the automaker and its network of suppliers and partners are dealing with you, right? So that was the inspiration for writing the Flagship Experience.
Because what you talk about in the book, isn't it, is about the fact that we're used to buying a car and we drive it off the forecourt and that's it for the rest of its life. But what we've seen with Teslas is that, there'll be an update and all of a sudden it's different.
That's right. I mean, so first of all, I was through the book, I'm providing this blueprint that automakers, to begin with, can start thinking about not only what happens as you design and manufacture a vehicle, but really you have to worry about what's happening once the vehicle moves out of the plant and goes to the dealer and is acquired by somebody and is being used. And the point is that Tesla, as you mentioned, by introducing the charger network, made charging part of the customer experience, right? So and then with the over-the-air updates, it changed completely how we think about servicing a vehicle. And with the various applications that they have introduced in the vehicle, whether it is for security, whether it is for parking, and their the full self-driving, their semi-autonomous capability, they are starting to think. They gave the idea to the user that there's a lot more to how I interact with the vehicle over the life of the vehicle than the options that I choose when I go and buy the vehicle from the dealer, right? There's this journey that I articulate in the book that is not only based on what Tesla and other newcomer automakers have done, but it makes sense for the new vehicle and how we move around.
So what do you see as the state of automotive at the moment, especially around the newcomers, and what's the state of automotive right now?
So the automotive industry is in an interesting crossroads because there were a lot of newcomers that came in. Many of them have failed. There is obviously the entry of the Chinese automakers, which is having a huge impact not only in Europe but the rest of the world. Not so much yet in the United States because we haven't, because of the tariffs and the restrictions that the government has imposed. But there are the new emission regulations that are impacting what vehicles are going to be produced and how. So the industry is in a turmoil right now. Now, you cannot approach, or one cannot approach the industry as a whole. You have to look at it very regionally. And one of the points, in fact, that the book makes is that even when it comes to what features to incorporate, what automations to incorporate in the book, in the vehicle, how to think about the customer experience, it's becoming very regional, right? So the Chinese buyer wants a lot of technology in the vehicle. So if you look at what newcomer automakers like NIO, like XPeng, BYD, even more recently Xiaomi, have introduced the vehicle, is a lot of technology that frankly the incumbent Western automakers and Japanese automakers talked about, but not quite introduced. And that, if you combine that with the low price that these vehicles, the Chinese vehicles, are introduced at, it's having an impact. I mean, you look at in Europe right now, they're probably getting about about 3% market share, and something which is not. And if you look at it as a percent of just the battery electric vehicles, that percent is a lot higher. In the U.S., obviously Tesla continues to do well in regards to electric vehicles and kind of new mobility vehicles. The incumbents, though, Ford, GM, have stumbled. Same thing with newcomers like Rivian and Lucid. And then in Korea, Korea is producing some very interesting vehicles, which I think are getting a lot of attention both here in the US and in other parts. And they pay a lot of, by the way, I should say about the Koreans, that are paying a lot of attention to the overall customer experience. And Japan is somewhere in between. So a lot of, I mean, we cannot, my point is that we cannot see it as a one unit. I think we need to see the industry in a variety now, very regionally, and each region has its own challenges. And how they're going to approach these challenges. I mean, in other words, which path in the crossroads they're going to take is going to be an interesting study for the next 3 to 5 years.
I think there's been so many changes taking place, and people like VW, who are a stalwart of the automotive industry, announcing layoffs. It's just amazing.
Well, they're not only announcing layoffs, but they're announcing layoffs in the home country, and that is something that I think the German worker has not been prepared of. And it's not only Volkswagen, it's also it's not only the Volkswagen group, in other words, because Volkswagen's Audi and Porsche and Bentley and all that. But it's not only Volkswagen, but it's also Bosch and several other of the suppliers that are feeding that supply chain are having an impact. And that's because Again, Volkswagen has had troubles with their new vehicles, software-defined or otherwise, and they're not competitive in the way that they thought they would be.
So what's the role of AI in automotive and mobility?
I think the role, in my opinion, it's a critical role in AI. I've always viewed AI as a key ingredient to mobility. So, as I said several years ago, I was talking about AI in autonomy, in autonomous movement, right? Autonomous mobility, and in fact, we're seeing more recent, the last year, there is a resurgence of interest in AI, by the role of AI in autonomy through the so-called end-to-end AI that companies like Wave in the UK and Wabi in Canada are reintroducing, and they're getting a lot of money from venture investors to pursue their approach. We see Waymo having very successful commercial operations here in San Francisco and in Phoenix, and most recently in Los Angeles. Beyond that, though, AI plays a big role is starting to play a big role in the design and manufacturing of this new generation of vehicles. I think generative AI will start playing a very critical role in how we consider various designs of vehicles and how we simulate it and we refine them in the process, and it will cut down significantly the time it takes to introduce a new vehicle. But by the way, we see the Chinese introducing new designs every 16 months on something that takes incumbent automakers 40 months. So that gives you something. And then when you go beyond that, we see AI playing a key role in how mobility services like ride-hailing or car sharing or micro-mobility are operating. I mean, all of these companies, whether it is Uber or Voi in Europe or Grab in Asia, they're heavy users of AI. And then, of course, as I said in the book, when it comes to the customer experience, we should start seeing the role of AI not only in the infotainment system of the vehicle, but in other parts, both within the cabin, but also in the vehicle. So critical role across many different functions.
Because you talk in the book, don't you, that you present a framework for the software-defined vehicle. So explain to us, what is a software-defined vehicle, and talk to us about the framework that you put forward as well, and why should I care?
Yeah. So a software-defined vehicle at a high level is a vehicle whose functions are created and supplied through mostly by software. Now we have in the book I talk about two types of software-defined vehicles, if you will. There are those that are created by retrofitting existing architectures. Existing architectures that are called microcontroller architectures. So if you look at many of the vehicles that have been introduced, particularly by incumbent automakers to date, use architectures that are retrofits of the existing architectures that they have for the, let's call them, conventional vehicles. Newcomers, starting with Tesla and then going to Rivian, and as I said, several of the Chinese like NIO and XPeng, are taking a clean sheet approach, and they are creating. They're basing their software-defined vehicles in zonal architectures, where again the percent of the functions of the vehicle provided by software is it's over 70%, And that means that more of the vehicle can be updated over the air. More of the vehicle's functionality can be selected by the user even after the vehicle is initially purchased. So there are many. The overall wiring and connectivity of the vehicle is simplified greatly. So it's a much cleaner design. And to me, one of the best validations for the clean sheet approach is the recent agreement that Volkswagen made with Rivian. So Volkswagen ditched its software-defined architecture, which was called MEB, an architecture on which they spent billions of dollars, but it was really based on this domain-based, this retrofit approach, to partner with Rivian and adopt its architecture, which is zonal and clean sheet software defined. So this is a very interesting. It's a very interesting transaction, which says a lot about the importance of a good architecture for these software defined vehicles.
Because you also talk in the book about the business case and the way that the software architecture can change in effect what the consumer pays. So at the moment, for example, we pay money up front and then drive it off the forecourt. Whereas in the future, we may pay for certain functionality and pay it on a monthly basis. And we may say, just like we do with a television, cable TV, we may say we don't want that, or we do want that. Yeah. And you talk about the business case, don't you, in terms of the way that the way that automobile companies, it may move where they're getting the money and how they're getting the money from the consumer.
Exactly. So first of all, it all starts, again, to connect to your previous question about the role of AI. Software-defined vehicles, say, regardless of the approach that the developer takes in creating them, are big data generators, and the big data from such vehicles is generated both from the powertrain components, the suspension, the battery, everything that makes the vehicle, as well as from the cabin and its occupants, right? So software-defined vehicles are big data generators, and that data can be utilized to provide a variety of insights to the automaker, but also to the user of the vehicle. And it's important to I use the word user as opposed to owner, because I'm assuming that we will come to the point where the person who is using the vehicle may not be the owner, but may not even be in the household of the owner, right? So it's important that we start teasing out that approach and thinking about how we can be customizing the vehicle on a per user basis, rather than just what the owner selects at the time that they purchase the vehicle or lease the vehicle. Now, to your point, is that when I was interviewing a lot of executives, including vehicle designers, and also the work that our firm has done, I think it is possible to start thinking about let's call it the 60 or 70% vehicle, as I call it in the book, where there's a set of basic capabilities that come with the vehicle as it rolls out of the assembly line. But then, as the vehicle is being used, and that's why it's important to think about that post-sale customer experience, as the vehicle is being used, every user understands what may be important for them to have in the vehicle. Somebody who takes, in the book, I talk about the case of a sales representative, of a pharmaceutical sales representative, who is in her car for most part of the day, of the working day, right? She will have a very different need from a soccer mom who is using the vehicle to take kids around to various activities, to maybe have several activities herself. And it's going to be very different from somebody who is using the vehicle for a long commute, right? But then once this commute is done, the vehicle stays in a parking lot, right? So each of these, we need to be able to understand these users of each vehicle and be able to dynamically customize the characteristics of the vehicle. And to your point of the business case, my argument is some of these characteristics will be paid for after the sale of the vehicle. It will be one-time payment, that kind of business model. Others may be offered for free by the OEM, by the automaker, and others may be kind of like one-time transaction that only lasts for one ride and nothing more, right? So we'll have a variety of business models that they will play a role as part of this customer experience. And again, surveys that we've done and other folks have done, some of which I cite in the book, have shown that again, different geographies have different expectations, but there is this opportunity to really rethink the customer experience and provide something completely different from what we're used to right now.
Thank you, Evangelos. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about your book. Fantastic book about the future of automotive. For me, it was, so much in there in terms of there's a revelation in terms of the way that the business has got to change. So if I wanted to buy a copy, where can I find it?
It's in every bookseller online. I also know that the publisher has made available to several bookstores, but online will probably be the easiest.
So Amazon or something like that, we can get a copy.
Yeah, thank you.
And where can we find you?
Again, corporateinnovation.co is my personal site. LinkedIn also on personal connection, and then synapsepartners.co is our firm's website.
Thank you so much for coming on and talking about your book. It's a fascinating subject. Something that I didn't ask you the future deliberately because we probably don't know what the future is.
I think that's a fair point. And even if you had asked me a year and a half ago, what would be the future of automotive, I wouldn't have predicted where we are today.
Yeah. Thank you so much.